to hear my story, so you'll know who I am when and y'all are talking to me on a day-to-day basis. So he just let me know about an hour ago I'd be doing this. So I hope y'all don't mind. Um, and the announcements, I know the 10th, which is this Saturday, they're having the ranch lake day. So if you guys want to go out to the ranch, to the lake day with the ranch, you can spend the day with them. You can also spend the night that Friday night if you want to. I think it's Piney Grove. And if you don't want to spend the night Friday night, you can go Saturday at 11 o'clock to Piney Grove, spend the day with the guys from the ranch. That's men only. And then the same thing for any women on the 17th for the women. Same situation, 11 o'clock Piney Grove. And then on the 24th, we have the Servant Heart Food Pantry, and that's 10 to 12. If you want to volunteer and come help, then we usually get here about 8 o'clock. Vacation Bible School, it is the 12th through the 16th. So next week, we'll be starting Monday, and it'll be every night that week from 5 to 8 o'clock. And I know they need some more volunteers, so if you just want to come take pictures or pass snacks out, we would love to have y'all. So I'm just going to pray real quick. So, Father, I just thank you so much, Lord, for this day that you've given us. God, I thank you for your son, Jesus, who died for me, God. I thank you that you just have given me this opportunity to share your story. And, Lord, I just pray for everybody here, God, that you would just continue to speak to us, continue to guide us, Lord. And, Lord, any needs that need to be met, Lord, you just meet them. And God, we just love you and we thank you and we praise you for this day. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so my name is Casey Wortman. I was born in Webster, Texas. My dad was in the Air Force. We just lived there about a year and moved to Oxford, Mississippi. I have an older sister. She's 11 months older than me. So it was my dad, mother, and me and my sister. And we moved to Oxford, Mississippi. We were only there a couple years, maybe one or two. And then we moved to Mobile, Alabama. So Mobile, Alabama is where I kind of grew up. I was there kindergarten through 8th grade. My parents did divorce when I was about 4, so shortly after we moved to Mobile, I think they divorced. I know they were married like 16 years before that, so I don't know why they chose to get divorced. I think my mom just always told me they just fell out of love, and but they weren't on bad terms or anything. So I do remember as a child being very, having like a bad temper, being just like throwing tantrums, not knowing why. I remember having nightmares as a child, and we didn't grow up in church. We went to church on Easter and Christmas, and I wore a pretty dress, and those were the only times we went, and I never heard about Jesus or God or anything other than that. So just remember being very rebellious at a young age, having bad dreams, wanting to sleep, with my mom, and then she eventually kicked me out of her room, and I would even like put the couch cushions up next to her bed while she was asleep, and I would sleep there and just had to like touch her hand. And then they started locking the door, and so then I would sleep outside the door and just like touch the door. And so I don't really know why I did that. It was just something inside of me, like a fear. So I will back up and say when I was born, I got food poisoning when I was 2 days old, and it almost killed me. So that just kind of shows you how the devil's after us from the time we're born. The doctors wanted to give me this big like needle in my back of medicine, and my mom told them no. And they said I might not make it, but that was my only hope. And she said no, and took me to a family doctor, and they gave me penicillin, and I was fine. So I'm glad she might have kind of heard from the Lord on that one. So just in Mobile, I spent a lot of weekends at my dad's, so I kind of think I was a daddy's girl. Probably say that just because I probably got away with more with him. And I don't know why, but just at a young age felt that I was like unloved or just not good enough or kind of like an outcast. I remember feeling that way as a young child. Um, and so spent a lot of time with my dad. First time of having like something happen, my mom had a boyfriend who molested me and my sister and a friend of ours. And I was probably 7 or something, I don't know, 6 or 7. And so she found out and then, told him, if you ever come back around us, I'll kill you. Didn't call the police or anything, never asked, how are you, never got any counseling, anything like that. And then my mom met a man named Tim, maybe when I was 8 or 9, I don't really remember. He became my stepdad, but he was a good man. My dad died when I was 11. They told me when he died that he died of cancer. I later found out that he died of AIDS. So that was hard. Tim was in our life, and then the next year she married him when I was 12. But when I was 11, when my father died, I tried to commit suicide at age 11. I don't know how I knew that you could take a bunch of pills and your life might be over, but that's what I did. And I think my mom just made me throw up. I kind of have memories of going to the hospital, but I don't really know. I kind of have memories of just being at the house throwing up. But there was never like, are you any counseling? Like, are you okay? Maybe we need counseling. It was just kind of, let's brush this under the rug because, in our family, things like this don't happen. We don't want everybody to know. So that was, the first big thing that happened that really hurt me. Also from the age of, I'm going to leave that part out. So that happened, and we had some neighbors that were smoking pot and stuff, and they asked if we wanted to do it. So that's the first time I remember smoking pot, and I think I probably drank before that, like when my dad died around 11, I think I drank. But I know by the age of 12 I was drinking, smoking pot, and by the age of 12 having sex. And that just continued. I'll just say it continued until, I was 12 years old. It continued 7th, 8th grade. I was just drinking, took microdots at a young age. So I found out that my stepdad's job was moving us to Augusta, Georgia, and I was upset about that. I had friends, and from kindergarten through 8th grade, I didn't want to move. I didn't want, change. I felt like I didn't have a voice or a say in it, which I understand I was a child, but it was still hard. Like, the move was hard. And so we moved to Augusta, Georgia, and I'm at a new school, 9th grade, just starting out. And I just found the crowd that was doing the same kind of things, just the wild crowd. We drank all the time. Pretty much every night. I feel like I probably remember drinking or doing something, smoking weed. My first consequence with the law, I was in the 10th grade, and a bunch of us were just like in the woods drinking out of a keg, and the police came, and a lot of us ran. And we ran and just ran through the woods for hours until like the next morning, and then we finally got caught. And we were in McCormick County, South Carolina, and the police just, slapped us on our hands and said, don't ever come back to McCormick County. And I'm not sure I got grounded or anything. We didn't get much discipline in our house. We didn't have a curfew, really. It was just kind of like, when you need to be home. I don't remember having a curfew. Maybe it was midnight. I don't know. But never many consequences to the things that happened, to the things I did. So high school, just very wild, very promiscuous. I began to think at this age that if I had sex with a guy, that meant he loved me, and that it meant I was something, and I was important. And so I'm trying to think of any other big consequences. 12th grade, I find out that we're moving again. So they're moving me away my senior year. And I was very angry. And so my stepdad's job moved us to Auburndale, Florida, in Polk County. And I probably graduated with 30 people. But so just it continued there. Very wild, very rebellious, very promiscuous. Started, being with men and women and multiple partners in the 12th grade of high school. Got pregnant. Back up to my 11th grade year, was raped by a guy. He was a senior. I was in 11th grade. So 12th grade in Florida. I got pregnant, and my mom told me I had to have an abortion or get kicked out of the house. So, I didn't have anywhere to go. So I thought that's what I had to do. So these things, they're just hard. And, you're pulling from an empty well and you don't have Jesus and you just have no hope. And so I was hopeless for a long time. And my sister, she's a year older than me. So when I had to go to Florida my senior year, she went off to college. During my senior year, I had a stepbrother who was in the Army. He fought in the Desert Storm War. Okay. I was in 3rd or 4th grade, and he was at war. So my senior year, he came home to Florida. We were all supposed to go eat or something, and he never showed up. Well, we found him with his head blown off. And so that was really hard on my family. It was really hard on my stepdad. And he ended up like gambling, drinking a lot, maybe doing drugs. I don't really know. Cheating on my mom. And so she ended up, divorcing him and wanting to leave. But we stayed in Florida until I graduated high school. And then the day after I graduated high school, we moved to Oxford, Mississippi, which is where all my family's from. And that's where my mom was born and raised. So she wanted to go there and be back with her family. So I just thought, this will be great. It's a fun town. I've been there. My cousins are there. I love them. And everybody drinks. So I'll just fit in great. So we go to Oxford, and I'm like, I'll just take a year off. I won't start college. I'm going to take care of my mom. But I did get a job at Abner's, and I had that job a while. I don't know how, but we drank every night. It was okay to drink. My family, drinking was okay. It's Ole Miss football, and we went out every night. We even went out on Sunday nights. There wasn't a bar open in Oxford on Sunday nights, but you could go to Holly Springs to a place called Junior's, and they had a little band, Junior Kimbrough, and little blues and jazz, and that's where we went. And it was not a safe place for me to be. I actually got robbed at gunpoint out there before and saw a lot of knife fights. But that's where we went because you could drink beer, and it was right across the county line. So we moved there, started doing cocaine that year, and that's something I said I would never do. I remember in high school, marijuana is one thing, but I'll never do cocaine, like ever. I'm scared of that stuff, So then that led to crack, and that was something I would never do. I wasn't a crackhead, and I was never going to smoke crack. I'm not like that. But when I was introduced to it, of course I did it. And then that was the first drug that just kind of really sent me to a dark place. And I did a lot of things that I just wouldn't have done or never imagined that I would do. And I got caught. I was babysitting for a lady, and I took a check from, I was like, they'll never know $100 is missing. And so I wrote a check and cashed it, and, you know, then I get a call, and they're like, hey. And of course, it wasn't a time I was wanting to talk to anybody. So I had to talk to my mom and tell her I have a problem, and took this money. And, of course, she had to pay it back. And so I wouldn't go to jail. They wouldn't press charges. And that was the first time I went to, I think I went to treatment in 2003. I went to the Haven House, and I might have stayed. I don't know. You know, the past, like before I met the Lord and became a new creation, I don't remember much. So the details are real foggy. But I just I tried to stay sober and tried to do this, and people were saying one day at a time, and live and let live, and live and let God. And they were talking about 1 out of 50 of y'all in here will make it a year. And I was seeing people get a year, you know, birthday chip, and I just wanted that so bad. But I didn't, you know, AA didn't work for me ever. So just kept, you know, drinking, and eventually end up in treatment again. I was going to like concerts, doing ecstasy, mushrooms, smoking crack, and then it just got worse. And so I go back to treatment. I'm sure I went back because I had probably 10 car wrecks. I don't know what sent me back the second time. So the second time, I think, was 2004, so it wasn't long. And then I go back, in this time, and I go the same place, and this time I meet a guy there, and he's, you know, gorgeous, and I love him, and we love each other, and we're going to get married, and it's going to be great. And he shoots heroin, and I've never done that, and I don't want to do that, and he doesn't like crack, so we're going to work out great together. So we get out and finish, and we stay sober a few months. Well, as soon as he relapses, and he relapsed on Dilaudid, and I had never done the needle. I was scared of needles. I don't like them. To this day, I'll pass out if I see one. But when he used the needle and did Dilaudid, I was like, well, y'all look like y'all are having fun, so do it to me. And so that's the first time I ever did use the needle. And that was the beginning of, you know, another part of something I think was the worst time of my life. So it was just a whole different thing. And the opiates, it's a physical addiction, so it's almost like you have to have it. You'll do whatever you have to do to get it, and you don't care who you hurt. And that's the kind of person it made me. So I won't get too much into it. From 2005, we had a son. I got pregnant, had a son, got sober a little bit, but started using again. I just knew I wasn't going to have my son around what I was doing. And we were writing bad checks. We had took some checks from, he was my husband at the time, from my husband's mother, and wrote and cashed them. And I knew we weren't going to stop ourselves. We would have to be stopped. And so I gave my son to his aunt and asked her to take care of him when he was maybe 1 or 2 years old. And so then I'll just say the next few years, we eventually turned ourselves in. I was like, I can't continue down this path. I'm getting farther away from getting my son back. And so we turned ourselves in. I ended up going to jail. Michael went to jail. He had to go to prison after a few months of jail because he had a prior drug charge. I had never been in trouble, so they offered me drug court, and this was April 2008 in Oxford, Mississippi, and drug court was brand new, and they said, hey, we're going to put you on drug court. You're the first person on it. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. So I'm like, all right, this is great. Maybe I can, stop living this way. And my mom was like really close with the judge, and they were, grew up together. And so he knew my family. Well, drug court didn't work out for me. I tried, and I tried to stay clean. I tried to stay sober, but when the temptation would hit me, I didn't know how to resist it. And that was the problem for so long. I never knew how to resist the temptation. My first year of drug court, I got sent to prison to do the long-term alcohol and drug treatment program, and then came back, and then the drug court officer who was in charge of me, who was an officer of the law, started getting me drunk because he wanted to sleep with me. And that went on for a while until I got hooked back on heroin and told him I wanted help. I did not want to be on heroin. I needed help. And so then he put me under the care of the other drug court officer. And the day I had to meet with her, I failed my drug test. And the judge told me, "You're out of here. You don't want to quit. You're out of here." So I got sent back to prison. Well, while I was there my second time, they found out what had happened with him. And they came to get me, and it was the FBI and the judge, and I had to tell him everything. And, he asked me why I never said anything, and I just told him that I felt like I played a part in it too. But he let me know that, no, you're a victim, that he is an officer of the law, he was in your care, he is your superior, and that, no matter what you did, that never should have happened. And they wanted me to come back on drug court if I wanted to. The judge said that he had to believe that if he would have never gave me that first drink, that maybe I would have been okay and still doing good. So I came back on drug court. I should have just stayed there and done my time, but I went back to drug court because anybody wants to get out of prison. They don't want to stay in there. And came back on drug court. Well, then that's just another thing that was added down to my heart and soul, and it was more pain that I had to stuff and live with and not know how to deal with it. I had no hope for the things that I'd been through. It was just another, like rock added to your backpack, and you just keep can't do it. And so, and there, I'm going to the meetings because that's how you stay sober. And if you talk about God in them, you got to get out of there. And, so I'm trying to worship a doorknob, and it's not working. And so, and in this time, I hurt a lot of people. I hurt my family, stole from my family, always asking my mom for money, and she's always giving it to me. So I got I'm back on drug court, and I don't make it long. And, I think before I went back to prison the third time, I had a preacher come see me that had come see me in jail, and he was part of drug court. And then he comes over and takes advantage of me. So then I've been taken advantage of by the preacher as well. And that was real hard for me to deal with. Didn't care about myself, didn't care about living, didn't care about anything. I just hated myself. I hated God. I thought God hated me. And, I just continued down that path of self-destruction, and self-will run riot. And I didn't care who I hurt because, hey, y'all didn't care about me. Y'all didn't care about hurting me. I don't care about hurting y'all. And that's how I lived for a long time. But went back to prison, got out, went back, got out, went back. Went a total of 5 times. 2013 is the last time I went and got out. In 2013, I went to live with a woman I'd met in prison, and we were in love. That's what you do in prison. You find a woman and fall in love. So I got out and moved in with her. And everything was fine for a while. I was seeing my son, and I wasn't there long at her house, maybe a year. She was on drug court, but when she got off drug court, we celebrated and got drunk. And then we had to have drugs we were getting tired, so then we had drugs to keep us up. And I was like, well, I want heroin, and she said all they have is meth, and I said, well, just let's do that, and I'd never done that. Um, oh, and I found out my mom had cancer. I think that's why we did that. That's why we did the drugs. Found out my mom had cancer, um, and and I wasn't talking to my family. They weren't, they didn't want to be a part of my life. So that was hard that I didn't have my family. I had pushed them all away. My mom was the only one that would talk to me. So found out my mom had cancer. All he had was meth. I did it, and did it with a needle the first time, and that was another one of the darkest places in my life, and it really was the darkest time of my life, so much worse than any of the other ones. And this was around 2014. Just a lot of darkness, literally in hell during that time of my life. Did get pregnant and got sober while I was pregnant, and then started using again because my mom's still sick, and I still, don't know how to do this. Don't know how to live. Don't know how to resist the temptation. I mean, I was just white knuckling it the first 5 months of Ainsley's life. So, and Ethan's my son. I had him in 2006. Had Ainsley and had her in 2015. So got sober, and then a few months after she was a baby, started using meth again. And it got so bad to where I had a friend from where I grew up say, hey, come here or you're going to die. And I was on probation in Meridian, and I just got in my car and drove to Mobile. Didn't care. I didn't care about how I was going to report or what I was going to do. I had to go, get away from where I was. And so I go there and end up living with these people who want to take care of me, who want to help me, who like charity cases, who like to help people get back on their feet. Very wealthy, well-known in society. Get there, I'm there a couple weeks, find out they're swingers. So, so then another lifestyle I get involved in. Not, how does this happen? So, I get pulled into that lifestyle. I feel like got to take advantage of again. And it was bad. And I wasn't there long. We went out one night, got drunk, and I called my friend from Meridian, that woman, and I was like, hey, I need some drugs, because that's kind of what drinking a lot would do to me sometimes. And so she met me halfway and got in my car, and I'm doing the drugs, and she's driving my car, and we didn't get far down the road, but I remember the cruise was set on about 65, 70, and she fell asleep driving and hit a tree, and I broke my neck. I remember that night. I remember it happening. I was wide awake. But I remember like the door wouldn't open and the window was busted, and these men were like all there, and it was just like white. And I really feel like God was just here, and his angels were right there, because they're asking me like, what's wrong? And I was sitting like that, so I busted my kneecap and my patella. And I knew my knee hurt. It was real big and black, and I said, my neck hurts real bad. And I just remember the guy looking at me, and he said, ma'am, don't move. And I was like, okay. And so I somehow just floated out of the window. Like these guys got me, and it was just like the feeling I had was just floating out of the window, and I just feel like it was God's angels just carrying me out of that car. And so that happened, and the doctors say that, when people hang themselves with a rope and commit suicide, those were the bones that were broken in my neck. And he was kind of like, I just don't know why you're not paralyzed. I don't know why you're not dead, but if you're not dead, why are you not paralyzed? And I didn't know then what it was. I didn't know. I was a cat with 9 lives, really. It's kind of how I feel. Overdosed several times on opiates. I left that part out, but I think 4 times. I feel like I had a meth overdose. I got shot up with this guy's needle. It was not supposed to be mine, and it was so much that everything went blank and clear. Like, my ears were ringing, and I just remember everybody in the room taking advantage of me. So I don't know if they were trying to kill me or if they were trying to do that, but I can just look back and see where God, he just was there. And when I shouldn't have been there anymore, and he was there, and he was with me through all of it. And so after the car wreck, my mom, that was February of 2016. My mom died in April of 2016. I had a 1-year-old, a broken neck, and a cast from here down, and I was just all alone with no hope. And I moved back to Oxford. Just ended up getting with a guy. He was a good guy, but he was an enabler. And but probably without him, I wouldn't have made it. Went to rehab. I knew I was going to be okay in Oxford because I didn't know anybody that did meth. But then the girl that I did crack with, well, now she does meth. So I knew somebody that did meth, and and it's just the enemy. So from 2016 until March 2017, I just tried to get sober. I could do it for 30, 60, or 90 days. And then I just didn't know how to resist that temptation when the urge came. I didn't know. I was actually going to church, to a spirit-filled church, and I was going to celebrate recovery, so that was the most of Jesus I had gotten, like, in my whole life. But I didn't know how, and I didn't have people discipling me, like walking it out with me. But, that church, they were nice, and they'd pat me on the back and just tell me, you got it, you can do this. And they were probably trying to help me, but so in February of 2017, I knew a lady in Celebrate Recovery, and she said, hey, I know you're struggling. Like, I was picking up a white chip like every 4 days because I'm trying and I'm honest because they said that helps you. And so I'm like, look, I need help. Like this, I'm trying. I messed up again, and a week later I messed up again, or a month later I messed up again. And they're like, keep coming back. So I did. But hey, now I can't stop. So she said, hey, I know somebody, and if you ever need help, like want to go somewhere to treatment, she will help you, and she'll take care of your baby, and it'll be fine. So that kept playing in my head, and kept playing in my head, and I was hearing about the Lord, and I was hearing about Satan, and I kind of could see the enemy trying to do with Ainsley, my daughter, what he had done with my son, and and I just couldn't let that happen because she's all I had, that I hadn't lost or given up, or she was still with me, even though it probably wasn't the best thing. And so one night when I was messed up, I could just hear the Lord kept putting this voice in my head, and it was a woman who told me years ago. She said, I never made it until I went to a long-term faith-based program. She said, I was just like you. Your story's so much like mine. She'd been to like 17 centers and prison. And then so one night specifically, I just kept hearing, I never made it until I went to and so the Holy Spirit was just putting that in my mind. And I'm like, why am I thinking about that? Oh. So I started to research places. And then I talked to this lady who said she would help me, and that's when I found the Transformation Home. And I called Cindy, and and she, this was like a Monday, I think, and then she told me to be there Wednesday. And I talked to my sister, who I hadn't talked to in probably 8 years, and she told me, Casey, if you go and get your life together, I promise you, I will be there for you. I will be in your life. You can be in my children's life. And so I went, and it was tough, but I heard that night, the night before I went, that Tuesday night, I heard the Lord telling me to go and to stay and to do not give up no matter what. Because if you go and you stay and you complete this, he said that fight will be over. And I knew what that meant. And so I went, and I had some challenges and things happen. But I just kept hearing the Lord say that fight will be over. And so I knew it was the enemy. And I came to the home, and I just, I was able to heal, and I was able to learn of a loving God, one who loves me and is a gentleman, and who, is never going to push himself on me and doesn't want anything from me, and who is good. And so I really just began to understand against the devil and God, and that warfare, and what and just what it meant, and how to resist temptation. So I learned all these things, and that he didn't hate me. That he created me for a purpose, and he had a plan for my life, and that Satan just wanted to not see that happen. So I learned all these things, and let's see. So I went and stayed and graduated December of 2017, and Austin was there. And then, God just continued just to restore. Everything that the enemy had stolen, he just starts giving me back and giving me back and giving me back. And my sister's one of my best friends today. She's, I could probably go pick my niece and nephew up today if I wanted. They could come stay with me. She's one of my best friends. And my son, his aunt, it was January of 2020. But let's back up 6 months. So like somewhere in 19, she told me, you're not going to get Ethan back. He's my son, and I'll fight you till the day I die. Well, January 2nd of 2020, she called me, and Ethan had been with me, and I married Colin. So Ethan got to come live with us for Christmas for a couple weeks. And God gave me a wonderful, godly man, one that is just, I never thought I would deserve. And he loves both my children. He's adopted Ainsley. And so, but she said, it was January 2nd of 2020, she said, and back up to that phone call, but she said, Ethan wants to come live with you. I know he means it, and because he'd, get mad at me, want to live with her, get mad at her, want to live with me, and that kind of thing that kids do. But she said, I envy the woman you are today. You're the reason I have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And she said, I cannot stand in the way anymore. She said, I will sign whatever piece of paper I have to sign, because there was a custody, order for 11 years. And, people had told me to get my son and fight for him and take him to go to court and all this. And I just always heard the Lord telling me to wait, prior to this conversation. People were telling me I need to fight for him, and he needed to see me fight for him. And so I'm seeking the Lord about that, and he tells me to wait every time. And so she said, he's packed. I can't stand in the way anymore. She said, you can come get him right now. And I was at work at Chick-fil-A. I was in my car, and they were in Amory, and it was just like, in a second, my life completely changed. And, her and I are best friends today. And we didn't get along, but that was because she didn't like the things I was doing. And I caused them a lot of pain. But she's one of my best friends today. I have a wonderful, godly husband who loves me, and he, and it's been rough because, I think I'm still healing from my past. From all the trauma and sexual abuse, and And so I try to, that word submit, not in even a sexual sense, but just in any sense. It's hard for me. But today, I want to live for the Lord, and I want to honor and love my husband and serve him because I'm doing it in reverence to God. And so it's really a beautiful thing. And so I love my husband, love to serve him, love to serve everybody. I wrote a few I'll say one more thing. So now, last year, me and my husband prayed for a baby. And because my tubes are tied and we don't have any biological children, but we prayed for a baby. Ainsley's praying for a baby brother. And then you have to be real specific with God because I didn't have a baby per se, but we get to take care of a little boy. He's 11 months old. His name's Cash, and we get to love on him right now. And God has just blessed us, and it's just an honor to get to give back to somebody else, because I had to have somebody take care of my kids, and it was very a good feeling to know that they were okay, that they were safe, that they were loved, and so just to see the Lord come in full circle and get to do that for somebody else, it just blows my mind. It really does. And we know that his mother and father are going to see a victory. So, but what else? So I was reading. I know I'm not going to go too much longer, but just talking about serving. I was reading Philippians 2, and I love it. Like it talks about if there's any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind, which basically says if Christ has done anything for you, which he has, he died for you. But what does it mean to have the same mind of Christ? And God just showed me Luke 19, for the Son of Man comes to seek and save what was lost. And I just feel like that's our purpose is to we get healed and made whole so we can go and help others, show them how to be healed and made whole so that we can release his kingdom on earth. And it goes on to say that, do nothing from rivalry and conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. And don't look to your own interests, but look to the interests of others. And I just think affirming, another's worth rather than like stroking my own ego is what life is about. And it does so much for me to call somebody or encourage somebody or just get out of myself, because if I'm in self, then I'm not in his will. I'm walking in my will, and it's not good. That's where we mess up. And so I just love Philippians 2. Perfect example of humility, God coming down in the form of man, being born in a manger. And so it says to do all things without grumbling or complaining so we can shine in the light in the world. And he made us for his glory and the change that people see in me from who I used to be before Christ to who I am now only because of Christ. That any good in me or any work I do or any of my accomplishments, they only point to his grace and his mercy. It's him working in me and through me. And so that's what I like to share with people. I love Philippians 2. I can relate to it so much because it's nothing that I've done. I've done nothing good. But finally surrender and get to know Christ and let him work through me and in me and heal me because it's for a purpose. It's for his purpose and his glory. And I'm just so thankful that he never gave up on me. So that's all. And I appreciate y'all listening to me. Everybody out there, just hold on and don't let go. Yeah. Yeah. Prayer request? Okay. Let's see. Do y'all have some prayer requests?